So as we look at proportions, there are essentially two ratios. If ratio just meant fraction, proportion is two equal ratios or two equal fractions. And so what happens is a lot of times one part of the fraction will be missing and we have to do something to solve it. So usually they say to cross multiply, and that's because what happens when you cross multiply, like on this situation, it's telling you to multiply 3 and 60 to give you 180, and that's equal to 12y, 12 times y. And so when you cross multiply, you're essentially, you don't have a fraction anymore. And so it's a little bit easier to get variables by themselves. So that's what we're going to do in this first question. When it's in the bottom, when that variable is in the bottom, that is more work. Okay. When it's not in the bottom, your life is actually pretty easy. You don't have to cross multiply, but when it is in the bottom, it does take an extra step to do it. So if I cross multiply here, again, we always cross multiply when there's an equal sign. So cross multiplication there would give me 6x, and cross multiplication on the other side, 4.5 times 160. When I multiply those, gives me 720. Now I'm going to mute myself because I have to sneeze. Excuse me. It never came. Okay, so to get the x by itself now, I'm multiplying 6 in x. And so now my goal is to do the opposite of that to get the 6 to the other side. So since I'm multiplying, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides, giving me the fact that x should be 120. So again, the reason why we cross multiply is to usually solve for a specific question, a specific part of the fraction. And so where we're headed now is you're going to have to set up the two fractions and then cross multiply. So again, in this question here, you were given the two fractions, but now you have to set up the two fractions and cross multiply. And so if we're on this map from Fort Wayne to Atlantic City, and it's 9.5 inches, the actual distance is 680. So it looks like my fraction, I could write that as 9.5 inches for every 180 miles. Okay, so if we've got the same map there, we've got 15 inches, but we do not know the miles. Okay, so again, lots of different ways you could do this. I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to rewrite this without the labels. I'm just going to rewrite it as 9.5 over 680 and 15 over x. So I'm going to cross multiply 9.5 times x. So 9.5x equals 680 times 15. Which is a number that I don't know. 10,200. And now I'm trying to divide by 9.5 on both sides so that I can get that x alone. Giving me 1,073, and it asks me to go to the 10th place. So the first decimal, so 0.7. So final answer should be 1,073.7 miles. That was my x value. So again, that's how many miles it is from Fort Wayne to Orlando based on this little scenario right here. So we've got another scenario where we have to set up the two fractions. So we've got this biology class with some fish, and they're catching a sample of 37 fish and releasing them. And then they catch 80 of them and 6 of them were tagged. How many fish live in the lake? So if I set up this proportion, if there's only 37, there's 37 tagged fish in the entire lake out of all the fish. And when they caught a total of 80 fish, So again, that total would be in the bottom. 6 of them were tagged. Okay. Now there's a lot of, what's hard about the fractions here is that this is one way to do it. I believe I could have also done 6 tagged out of the 37 tagged, and I caught 80 out of the whole lake. And so really, as long as you're consistent, it doesn't actually matter how you set up the fraction. There's always 4 different ways to do it. This part is hard because of the consistency here. So this was like, the reason the 6 is on top is because it's a part over that whole. So again, the whole tag, there's only 37 tagged out of the whole lake. And then the 80 was part of the lake out of the whole lake. And so a lot of times people like that part over whole concept. The purple scenario is kind of more in line with the like scenario. Like they caught 80 fish, 6 of them were tagged. They don't know how many fish are in the whole lake, but 37 are tagged. So really it just kind of comes up to preference. But that part over whole concept in blue there hopefully can make more sense if you're not sure where to go. So I'm going to run with the red part. I'm going to cross multiply to be 6x. And then some big number of 80 times 37, which is 2,960. And then dividing by 6 on both sides. Gives me 493. And that would be fish in the whole lake. So hopefully that's making some sense again about the part over whole. Again, you could have totally done it the exact same way, cross multiplication there, and gotten 493 if you would have done it in the purple way. So again, this orange box here, it's basically affirming what I just said about this part over whole. So it says, if we read the numbers straight across the numerators, there should be a connection between the pieces of information. So again, these were both tagged. And then for the denominators, it was like the total number of fish of a scenario. If you read up and down on the same side of equation, that should be true. It was the tagged out of all the fish in the lake and then the tagged out of the fish we caught. So again, you just want to kind of be consistent. And the fraction doesn't actually matter how you set it up as long as you're consistent. So if there's 3 green apples for every 5 red apples, they are writing it as 3 to 5. And there are 24 apples in my bag. How many are red? So notice the total for the 3 and 5 situation is 8. If for every 3, there's 5. But they didn't use 8 in this fraction right there. But then for the other one, it has the total. It uses the total. But the red does not use the total. So will this result in a correct answer? The answer is no. Both did not use the total. So that's kind of the main place where we make a mistake setting these proportions up, is sometimes like if it would have said, if there are 24 apples in my bag, you don't even need to know that there's 24. You could just say, if there was 16 red apples in my bag, how many green are there with the 3 to 5? So again, kind of a tricky thing to set up these relationships, but hopefully we can get a little bit better with some more practice. So the parts that don't match are those denominators. And I don't think we can really answer this question. Well, I guess we could. If we did 5 red apples out of the 8 total, it would be some unknown red out of the total 24. So again, it's 5 red for the total and 24 total on the bottom. So again, if you're paying attention, it goes red over total, red over total. You just kind of want to be consistent with those units there. Okay. Our next question here, this is kind of like a curveball in my opinion that this is just kind of thrown in here. But essentially, direct variation means that they're proportional in going down to 0, 0. So if it's, we'll get into graphs in the next unit, but essentially you want to start at 0 and go somewhere. So again, you want to start at 0 and go somewhere. That's what it means to be directly proportional. What happens when it's not directly proportional is if you start somewhere else other than 0, 0 and go somewhere. So again, that would be an example of something that is not directly proportional because you don't get down to 0, 0. And so that's why they represent it as y equals kx, because there should just be like one number that could get you from green to red, or tagged fish to total fish or whatever. And so another way you can think about this, that little y equals kx situation, I don't really have a lot of room for it, but if y equals kx, that k is called the constant of proportionality. So again, what is the constant? What is the number that can get me from y to x or x to y? And so a lot of times, since k and x are being multiplied, you can divide by x on both sides, and you should be able to take the two numbers y over x, and that should equal your constant. Okay. I think I'm explaining it in probably a more confusing way than I need to be. So kind of hang in there for a couple of examples here. So again, over here, if I want to get just the constant alone, I can divide by x on both sides. And I've got that y over x is equal to 4 over 5. Again, all I did was move that x to the other side since there was multiplication between the 4 over 5 and the x. And so these are directly proportional because I have a y over x situation and it equals some kind of number. Okay. As soon as if I would have had like a y plus 1 or a y minus 7 or something, it is not directly proportional anymore. You need to be able to divide the input and output and get a number. So from here, you should be seeing, so that first answer is yes. And so this situation here, to move this x to the other side, if I were to divide it right now, I have to divide everything by x. And so my life is starting to get a little bit weird here. Again, notice that this -5 is causing the problem. And again, as we get into graphs more, you'll see that -5 is actually telling you to start down here and go in this direction. And so it does not have this starting place at the cross at 0, 0. And so this would be a not directly proportional. I think the directly proportional is, again, it feels like kind of a curveball. It feels like we should cover the graphing before, but just kind of how the book's written. So my apologies for that. And so essentially, if I've been saying that y over x has to equal a number, and I have this table here, I should be able to take y over x, so 6 over 2, 7 over 3, 15 over 5, and 12 over 8, and get the same number each time, and that would make it directly proportional. And so if I just start from the right, if I do 12 over 8, I get 1.5. So if I get 1.5 every single time, then I'm good. 15 divided by 5, which is 3. So this is showing already off the bat, since these are not equal, it does not equal just a number every single time. So this is not direct variation or directly proportional. Either way is fine. This is not I'm going to write dv for direct variation. I'll just continue just so we have all the fractions. 7 over 3 is 2.33 repeating. And then 6 over 2 is 3. So 2 of the situations were the same. The 3s were the same. And if you were like not given 7 and 3 and not given 8 and 12, you could say that that was a direct variation situation. But since you have the extra points in there, it's not going to be the same. So if I do the same thing here, 6 over 2, that is 3. 12 over 4 is also 3. 15 over 5 is 3, and 21 over 7 is 3. So this is a yes situation every time y divided by k equals 3. So that is a directly proportional situation. Just 2 more questions, and then I'll hash a few things out, and then you guys will be free to go. And so we skipped 2.1 to start because, again, a lot of people had more problems with 5.1 and just 5.1 A and B. So you'll see in the video that this has this part over whole scenario already covered. And so we're just going to deal with that now. So we've got the 34,300 copies, and it's represented by 7.1% of the copies sold to date. How many copies have been sold to date? So a couple of things you want to do here is I would probably convert or just notice that when you have a percent based off of this situation right here, you have like 7.1 out of 100, because like if you just had like 2%, that fraction is 2 out of 100, or the decimal would be 0.02. So again, we skipped that section. It'll be covered in the video that you watch later this week, but that's just kind of the scenario we're running through. And so that needs to be equal to, that's the part divided by the whole. And so the 34,300 is the part, again, divided by the whole number of copies sold. And so again, this whole basically, except for this random direct variation, is essentially matching up the units and cross multiplying. So we want to cross multiply the 7.1 and the X and the 34,300 and the 100 when we cross multiply there. So we will divide by 7.1 on both sides, and we end up with 400,083 and 99 copies that were sold to date. If that 34,000 was just 7.1%, that would be our setup there. Okay. This next one is a little bit more confusing, in my opinion. A couple different ways you could do it. You could try to do the part over whole concept. Let's try it. So if we do the part over whole, 29%. Oh, you could, yeah. If we just did 29% over 100, that would be X over 129,000. And when we cross multiply, the only hard part about sometimes with these setups is you got to kind of understand what's happening, which you'll see why I'm saying that in a second. that gives you 3,741,000, just like that, equaling 100x. And when you divide that by 100, you get 37,410. So I don't know if I would do it this way. I think I'm gonna get a wrong answer when I do it this way. I don't know why I keep trying to do things a different way. I'm trying to show you guys like multiple ways to do it. I'm not helping. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Dang it. Don't listen to me. Yeah, because I was trying to show you guys the increased value, but I don't think it's gonna work that way. Because in the way I was going with this here, yeah, it's not gonna work. Yeah, sorry about that. I hate making mistakes. I should just trust my notes, even though it's a little bit different. So if I'm going off my notes, my notes say that the old price, oh man, I don't love it this way either. This question feels like it's just kind of thrown in here, but the old price of our house was multiplied by an increase of 29%. So when you increase by a percentage, it would be 1.29%, like that. And that needs to equal 129,000. The reason why I'm frustrated is because I feel like this question belongs in the next unit, but it's on your assignment. So I don't want you to be like completely blown up when you get to it. And so if we're trying to figure out the old value of the house, we just need to move that 1.29 to the other side. By the way, there's like so many ways to do this. So if you're finding a better way, I support you doing it a different way. If you divide by the 1.29 on both sides, you end up with $100,000. You probably could have got there logically, just like when it's in that nice number like that. I'm curious what people in the chat are saying. I think, yeah, Avi, not Avi, Avi. If you did it the way I was doing it, for some reason that I need to figure out for my own sleep tonight, I was about to subtract that 37,410 from the new price and get what you got. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, but it doesn't work in this scenario, which I'm not sure specifically. I think it's because it was like increased, like it wasn't 29% of the original. So yeah, the actual price we want to work with is the original price is 100,000. I'm going to stop talking because I want people to get some homework done. So thanks for hanging in there with me. Sorry that I was on the struggle bus for number 10.